the minimum wage increase, Stephen. It sort of delivers on what Anthony Albanese made a centrepiece of his election to lift wages, but the flow-on effect, we've seen small business saying, look, this is going to hurt. Innes Willocks from the Australian Industry Group fears that some small businesses will fall over because of this increase in the minimum wage. It's a precarious economy right now.
Well, look, they're talking about inflation being at 8% in the near future. So this, I welcome this. And if you remember during the election campaign, I supported Albo and I said this is the right position because real wages have fallen now for a couple of years. And even when we hit the 8%, a 5% increase when inflation is 8%, is actually a 3% cut in real wages. So, as Tony Burke, I saw him on TV yesterday saying, well, if you just match inflation plus a little bit extra that you might hopefully get through productivity, and we're talking, barely 0.1% more than inflation, then this is a sustainable thing for the economy. I mean, right now, we are driving off a cliff. Interest rates are going through the roof. And wages are going backwards. This is a crisis for a recession. And the sort of wage policy you need right now is to put money into people's pockets so they can spend it.
Michael, do you fear we're heading to recession?
Yeah, I do. And look, to clarify something Stephen and I said last night, Stephen, we all think people on low wages should have an increase if it's sustainable. $20.33 an hour is now $1 more higher. That's terrific. There is a downside, though, of course. We saw that small businessman on your show, an hour or so ago, Kieran, crying because he didn't know that he'd be able to keep his cafe open. And, what you've got to worry about is a wage price spiral. And we've seen this before in Australia and in the world. And this is a result of easy credit for too long. It's no one could remember, with QE in America over the recent years, no one could understand why with QE it wasn't inflationary because if you massively increase the money supply, the demand for goods and services increases accordingly, and therefore prices go up. No one could really understand why QE wasn't massively inflationary. Well, there's been a delayed effect, but now it is, and it's going to cripple economies all around the world when you massively increase the money supply like they have. And so do I think we're headed for a recession? We're either headed for a recession or something very close to it. And whether it's a technical recession of the two negative quarters is neither here nor there. That doesn't matter. The bottom line is if inflation continues at breakneck speed and interest rates go up 3 or 4%, which they may well, that's what affects economies and households rather than the technical definition. That's irrelevant. So do I think we're in for a bad period ahead? Sure. Absolutely we are, and easy credit is one of the principal reasons.
Stephen Conroy, the Prime Minister, most would say that he's been off to a good start and hasn't really put a foot wrong, certainly on the foreign policy things. And tomorrow tonight, hosting the state leaders at the Lodge for his first gathering, not using the same language of national cabinet. It looks like we're returning back to the old COAG format.
Well, National Cabinet was a fiction created by Scott Morrison. As a judge in a court said, you don't get to call it cabinet just because you say it's a cabinet. A cabinet is elected through a parliamentary process, not just a gathering of 10 people who want to call themselves a cabinet. So I'm pleased to see that the meeting's taking place, and there's a lot of issues that hopefully there'll be reasonable support for around the table, and that it is being returned to its more traditional role, which is getting together, trying to work on some issues, not being a running day-to-day, weekly meeting of National Cabinet to try and resolve substantive issues. State government should get on governing the states, and the federal government should get on being the federal government. The National Cabinet belongs to the federal government.
Yeah, it was interesting. Stephen's been consistent on that, Michael, very critical of the National Cabinet idea, and it seemed to backfire on the then Prime Minister as well, because it sort of elevated the state leaders and then they'd put the boot into it.
I think it's probably good for the nation during the pandemic, but certainly bad for Scott Morrison politically. He looked weak. They looked strong. They were elevated to his equal when, of course, they're not. And collectively, they have a lot more political power than one Prime Minister's. You never win an argument with a multitude of premiers. So at a political level, it didn't serve Scott Morrison well at all. So perhaps that's why Albo's not referring to as a national cabinet going forward.
Michael Kroger, Stephen Conroy, gentlemen, thank you. Talk to you soon.